Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for spending the afternoon with us. We are very excited as the NAGC LGBTQ plus network to bring you our annual webinar, our Pride theme webinar. And we are also excited that we are coming up on our 10th anniversary as a network. And we're just glad that we're chugging along pretty well. We're growing our membership, so thank you to all of those of you who are members of our network. And if you're not, it's free to join. You could just be part of it, help us grow our network. If you want to help us spread the word about the importance of paying attention to this population of students who are both gifted and LGBTQ plus. Hi, I'm Doug Alexander, and I am the current chair of the network. And I am going to introduce our fabulous speaker for our Pride theme webinar. Dr. Paul James Cedillo, PJ Cedillo, is the Associate Professor for Special Education and Gifted Education at New Mexico Highlands University. He teaches the gifted education and coursework. Dr. Cedillo is published in Gifted Child Today, the Journal of Education and Social Policy, Parents of High Potential, and ABQ Press, where his book, Solidarity Through Pride, won Best Book in Arizona, New Mexico 2018, and won in a 2024 children's book, Embraced or Excluded, Fact or Fiction of Famous LGBTQ plus Persons by Pieces of Learning. His book chapter, Identifying and Serving Diverse Gifted Learners in Proof Rock Press, introduces stages of identity for LGBT gifted persons, which is fantastic, by the way. I highly recommend reading that, all of them, really. As a suicidologist, he has created an assessment for suicide and suicide ideation for the gifted in the International Journal of Arts, Humanities, and Social Sciences 2025. He served as president of the New Mexico Association for the Gifted, communication member and chair for the NAGC LGBTQ plus network, our network, LGBT state affiliate leadership and advocacy member, co-chair for the 2019 NAGC conference in Albuquerque, and an at-large board member for NAGC. And without further ado, I'm going to hand this over to my wonderful colleague, Dr. PJ Cedillo. Oh, PJ, you're on mute.
Thank you very much, Doug. It's this Zoom world that we live in. I want to thank you, Doug, for all the work that you do for our network. It's very much appreciated. And also NAGC for all the wonderful work that you do. So, of course, hello, everyone. And again, my name is Dr. PJ Cedillo. And I'm going to be talking about Pride Month and what it is. So what's this thing called about Pride? It was just mentioned again, I am a suicidologist. Again, my stages of identity is coming out again as a journal article, again, in the International Journal of Arts and Sciences. And I've changed it after introducing this for a year. It's now changed to the phases of identity, because we go more through phases than it's stage-like. So it's a new paper that's actually coming out. So I'm going to be talking about the significance of the LGBTQIA Pride Month, and why do we celebrate this here in the United States, and what gifted individuals who are LGBTQ plus who have led the fight for equality, who have led to this movement. If you do have any questions, put them in the chat box, and if you want to answer these questions anytime during my presentation, that's perfectly fine. So let's get started. So I want to talk about a few facts of where we began before Pride. Actually, in 1869, the term homosexuality appears in print for the first time in a German-Hungarian pamphlet written by Karl Maria Kurt-Benny. In 1897, Magnus Hirschfeld founds the Scientific Humanitarian Committee on May 14th to organize for homosexual rights and to repeal a paragraph 175. In 1897, George Cecil Ives organizes the first homosexual rights group in England. And in 1937, the first use of the pink triangle for gay men in Nazi concentration camps is, of course, used as a symbol to identify. Black was used, of course, for individuals who were considered lesbians or antisocial individuals in the government. Going back to 1897, looking at that paragraph 175, what people don't realize is that when the Allies freed most of the individuals in the concentration camps during World War II in Nazi Germany, individuals who were homosexuals were still kept in the prison camps many years after because of paragraph 175. In 1950 or 1938, the word gay is used for the first time in reference to homosexuality. 1950, the Mattachine Society is the first sustained American homosexual group and it's founded in LA. In 1956, and we're going to be talking about this very instrumental individual, Jose Sadia, who runs for city supervisor in San Francisco. He's considered the first openly gay male to run for public office. In 1969, we have the Stonewall riots, which occur in New York. And in 1973, the American Psychiatric Association removes homosexuality from its Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, the DSM-2. Imagine that, 1973, that finally the American Psychiatric Association removes the word homosexuality as a mental disorder. In 1970, we have the first Gay Liberation Day March held in New York City, and the first LGBT Pride Parade is held in Los Angeles. Interesting enough, there's sort of been a debate there on who has actually been the first, whether it's New York City with the march or LA because they had the parade. But further cities are 1971 with Boston, Dallas, Milwaukee, London, Paris, West Berlin. 1972, we had Atlanta, Brighton, Buffalo, Detroit, Washington, D.C., Miami, Philadelphia, San Francisco. And in 1976, I'm proud to say this because I live in Albuquerque, and Albuquerque has its first Gay Pride March. Very exciting for us. We're actually to be celebrating our 50th anniversary next year. And I served as president of Albuquerque Pride for 21 years. So little Albuquerque, we had our first Gay Pride March in 1976. So some interesting facts. More than 3 decades before June's annual celebration became official, the concept of gay pride had already emerged within the LGBTQ plus community. As early as 1966, a group had adopted the acronym PRIDE, P-R-I-D-E, which stood for Personal Rights in Defense and Education. The term gay pride and gay power were also influenced by the civil rights movements, language of Black pride and Black power, and several people have claimed to have coined the term gay pride, including activist Tom Higgins. So what's this thing called pride? Well, first of all, what is this history and the catalyst in many prides and those celebrations? It's held throughout the world with parades, prides, marches, rallies, all honor the Stonewall riots. It's an event that took place in New York City 66 years ago. The original Stonewall Inn was a gay bar which catered to an assortment of patrons. It was popular at all times with the most ostracized people in the gay community: transvestites, transgender people, effeminate young men, hustlers, and homeless youth. And so we see the Stonewall riots were a series of spontaneous violent demonstrations against a police raid that took place in the early morning hours of June 28, 1969, at the Stonewall Inn in Greenwich Village neighborhood of New York City. The riots are frequently cited as the first instance in American history where people in the homosexual community fought back against a government-sponsored system that persecuted sexual minorities. The Stonewall riots have become the defining event that marked the start of the gay rights movement in the United States and around the world. Many questions have been posed about why this event became the defining moment in the gay rights movement. What led up to the night of the riots? The individuals who were there at the riots have stated that there were no official gay organizations in existence and that the apparent cause of the demonstration was unplanned and spontaneous. Fictitiously, historical recounts have been cited that Judy Garland's funeral services which were on the same day, was the cause of the Stonewall riots. However, there has been limited evidence or no substantial confirmation to support this possible cause. So, what was happening in 1969? Gay Americans in the 1950s and the 1960s faced many troubles and difficulties. Very few people had the courage to come out of the closet because of the social taboo. In many states, it was illegal, and there were consequences if one was found out. A person could be fired from his or her job, be labeled as a mentally unstable, ridiculed and scorned, lose family and friends, or in some cases, even murdered. Sadly enough, is that in these times, these things still happen. We have no federal protection for job security. We're still ridiculed and scorned, and we can lose family members when we come out. And like I said, in some cases, even be brutally murdered. So during the time, people's suspicion of a person's lifestyle could go to the law and have the person arrested. If one was gay, he or she kept it a secret. This was a time when the majority of society did not know or even use the word gay to describe homosexuals, as well as other labels such as lesbian, bisexual, or transgender. This also included the many letters that followed the acronym of GLBT, which did not exist. Many segments of society did not want these individuals to exist as well. This is a time when the word gay, sometimes used derogatory, was transformed into a label for homosexuals to claim for a common solidarity. And for some years before the wide use of the word lesbian, they were noted as gay women. It's important to note that many organizations prior to the 1980s utilized the acronym GLB, then changed to GLBT in the 1990s to include the transgender community, and then altered to LGBT, starting with the letter L placed first and the letter G second. This change occurred in the 1990s to support the women's movement and the immense efforts of the lesbian community during the AIDS crisis. The acronym has now become an extensive acronym. As I was researching information for this presentation, I came across the most current acronym, which is LGBTQI2SPAA, meaning lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, two-spirit, pansexual, asexual, ally, and the list goes on. It must be noted that gays who were living in the United States during this time had experienced very few establishments and businesses that welcomed them. Those who stood in the shadows would seek bars. The patrons of these establishments were at times the most ostracized individuals in the gay community. Drag queens, the homeless, transgendered individuals, males who were effeminate, and male prostitutes. And they frequently visited these bars. Possible reasons for the riots could be that these hated individuals had nothing to lose, and the Stonewall Inn was a home for these outcasts. Police raids on gay bars were routine in the 1960s, and the patrons came to expect them on a regular basis, usually once a month. It is noted that many bar owners and managers were rarely gay. Like many other gay bars in New York, the Stonewall Inn was owned by the mafia. The managers of the bar usually knew about the raids due to tip-offs from the police. However, in the early morning hours of June 28th, 1969, the police turned on the lights, turned off the music, and made the 250 patrons line up. The patrons knew they were to take out their identification cards to be checked. Anyone in full drag was immediately arrested. Some of those who were what was deemed proper attire were allowed to leave. Recollections were that women had to wear 3 pieces of clothing that was judged as feminine. If the clothing was deemed inappropriate, they would also be immediately arrested. On Saturday, June 28, 1969, at 1:20 a.m., there were 4 plainclothesmen police officers and 2 uniformed officers who entered the double doors of the Stonewall Inn and announced their presence. Rumors had spread that the raid would occur. However, the raid took place much later than usual. The management's tip of the raid had been inaccurate. When the raid occurred, the officers called the backup utilizing the Stonewall Inn's pay telephone. They then fastened the doors, but the design raid did not go as planned. What was unusual about this night was that those who were not arrested and released at the front door did not leave. Those individuals who stopped outside and refused to leave created a crowd that began to grow to about 100 to 150 people. What happened next was the birth of a new revolution that marks why Pride is celebrated around the world. The police began to kick more patrons out of the Stonewall Inn, but some began to make effeminate poses and salutes with limp wrists as they mocked the police. When the first paddy wagons arrived, the crowd had grown to 500 or 600 individuals who possessed intense anger, resentment, and opposition. Pennies and bottles of beer began to be hurled at the police wagon. Then one of the officers picked up and shoved a butch lesbian who tried to escape from the wagon. She was hit on the head by a baton, and this incited the crowd. Then it was onlookers. They joined in the uprising. They assisted in turning this into a full-fledged riot. The police tried to confine the crowd, and because of this, encouraged the onlookers to fight back. This novel, historic engagement against the status quo would change the course of brutality, injustice, and non-acceptance for this segment of the population that society had reviled. The police tried to control the crowd. However, it was too late. The police had to retreat and barricade themselves in the Stonewall Inn for the mob outside the doors. Rumors spread through the crowd that the patrons still inside the bar were being beaten. This havens for gays had now become a haven for the police. Parking meters became battering rams. The mob next lit garbage cans on fire and broke the windows of the bar. The police tried to put out the fire, but the hose had no water pressure. The police inside were ready to use their weapons when the New York City Police and Fire Department came to their rescue. Upon their arrival, they tried to assist the police who had been imprisoned in the bar for their safety. The police attempted to disperse the mob with a formation of force, but the crowd only mocked them with their own formation, which was a course line with high kicks. The police rushed the group and began to bash their skulls with their nightsticks, and chaos ensued. The mob stopped cars and began to overturn them, and this provoked the police who began chasing the angry protesters, but the protesters began retaliating by chasing the police. Not until 4:00 a.m. did the first night of the riots end. Onlookers from the stoops of the individuals gathered in Christopher Park. An amazed skepticism took place whether what had occurred was real or not. But the excitement lingered on. 13 brave individuals had been arrested, and some others were taken to hospitals for injuries, along with 4 traumatized police officers. The Stonewall Inn had been destroyed, but its foundation and walls survived and would be rebuilt. The revolution would ultimately become the foundation of other prides in the world and would honor and never forget this powerful act of civil disobedience. It is necessary and crucial that the gay community realize that there's more to this historical event. Many recounts the story of Stonewall riots as one of the riots that took place in the wee hours of Saturday morning, June 28, 1969. However, it's important to realize that these riots continued Saturday during the day and many days that followed. This was a time when there were no cell phones, internet, tweeting, texting, or social media, which is the primary way now to gather and to support one another immediately, especially for Pride. Other riots would take place after the first one Saturday morning because it took longer to get the word out to the community about what happened and what was happening at the Stonewall Inn. Many had heard from others about this occurrence in the village, and they showed up just to see what was the commotion. What was it all about? Some wanted no part of this monumental event, but others believed that what they heard was untrue and they just wanted to see it firsthand. These reasons and many more would assist most of them in becoming part of this historical gay movement. All day Saturday, people came to look at the burned out shell of the Stonewall Inn. Graffiti was written on the walls of the bar with slogans of power, victory, and accusations. Thousands had assembled in front of the Stonewall, which surprisingly had opened its doors for business. Yeah, leave it up to the gays for something that's destroyed to put it back together and have a celebration. So this occurred because of the many supporters who decided to immediately rebuild the bar and show the power of the unity of the gay community. The only direction of the rebellion was to move forward with the realization that there was no turning back. The next night, the rioting resumed again. Fires were started in garbage cans. Buses and cars were moved back and forth for those who did not support the demonstration. Others were harassed who were not there to support the revolution. Hundreds of police officers were present, but the kick lines were again in full force. The second day of riots and gay power lasted until 4:00 a.m. Monday and Tuesday were intermittent because of rain, but there were still confrontations with the police. By Wednesday, the Village Voice and other newspapers are reported with descriptions that were fault-finding and unfavorable. 500 to 1,000 individuals threatened to burn down the newspaper building, and another clash took place with multiple injuries to the police and demonstrators. The incident lasted only an hour, and the community felt they had won. More protests took place the next evening and several nights after. The weeks following saw the residents of Greenwich Village organize and create activist groups to deter future persecutions of the gay community. Within 6 months, there were 2 gay activist organizations formed in New York and 3 newspapers, which began for the promotion of rights for gays and lesbians. And on June 28, 1970, the first gay pride marches took place in New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Chicago in commemoration of the Stonewall riots. Similar marches were organized in other cities, and today pride events are held throughout the world to commemorate the Stonewall riots. And I leave you with this quote here, is that a lot of heads were bashed in that night. A lot of people were hurt, but they all came back for more and more. That's when you could tell that nothing could stop us at that time or any time in the future. So are there any questions before I move on to any some famous individuals that helped the movement?
PJ, I have a question real quick for you.
Go ahead.
So if we have educators or even parents or families who want to teach children and adolescents about the history of this, um, uh, it could be tricky for some folks thinking about like, well, it's a riot and it's it was against the police and this and that. Like, what do you have tips for like? Obviously, what happened was needed because then it sparked this whole thing about gay rights movement. How do we couch it when we talk to kids about it so it doesn't come off as like so much as sort of an aggressive like right, but it was a needed kind of thing to push back against society and say it's not right the way these folks were treated.
It's an interesting question, especially the times that we live in now with looking at peaceful protests. I think this occurrence was the first time that an individual actually fought back and said no more. And I'm not one for violence, but sometimes when there's a bully, you need to fight back against that bully. And sometimes there's nothing wrong with defending yourself and being able to be able to defend yourself. I myself
Yeah.
got involved in this movement when I was hiding behind the buildings at my first Pride
Mm,
with fear of people firing me. And now I've realized that I need to become that voice for other people and I need to be that fighter for other people. And that's a tricky question because again, we're talking about violence. We're
yep.
talking about, but there comes a time when individuals need to learn how to protect themselves and
Mm,
and take that notion, which is, and again, first of all, it's peace needs to come first. But I think that sometimes when you're humiliated, uh,
hmm
spat upon, um, in fear of who you are, that finally it comes a time when you need to step up and figure out how to do something. And I think that violence is the last resort. And I think with this movement, violence was the last resort
Yes.
because it had built up to that level
Right.
of what was being done and condemned and honored by society, that
hmm
this was a time to say no more, no more. And
Yep.
so
Not
I
unlike the American Revolutionary War, right? Like there was just a point
yeah,
where the nation said no more. Like we're going to fight back. We're going to fight for our freedom.
yes.
A couple quick comments before you move on. It was a great summary of the event. Thank you. Appreciate the background about this historical event. Certainly wasn't in any history book I've ever read. Great. Someone did ask if you have like book recommendations for upper elementary or middle school, which you know maybe that would be a good segue for your next
I
uh,
do. And
component.
I'm gonna highlight my I'm gonna give you my information at the end. Please
Yep.
email me and I could send you some books about Pride, very kid-friendly books about Pride, different levels, age levels. So please reach out to me and I can send those to you.
Okay.
So moving on, I do, and I just I have a new book out. Of course, this is from Pieces of Learning. It's from the series I know that some of you have read Gifted or Goof Off before. This is extended. Again, this is for our gifted LGBT kids, but as well as our gifted kids. And it's called Embraced or Excluded, Fact and Fiction of Famous LGBTQ plus persons. It did win Best Book in Arizona and New Mexico, which I'm very proud of. But also, what I guess I'm more proud of, it's been banned in Florida and in Texas. So I'm going to highlight some of these individuals in there. And the first person that I would like to highlight is Bayard Rustin. Now, he's an American leader in the social movement for civil rights, socialism and nonviolence and gay rights. And I just want to read about him. It's good. So it says, Bayard Rustin, let me show you here. So, fact or fiction, Bayard Rustin organized protests, sit-ins, and declared nonviolent resistance decades before Martin Luther King Jr. The answer is yes. He was the leader. He was the actual. Uh, we would not have had Martin Luther King if we would not have had Bayard Rustin. And it's said that if Martin Luther King would have lived, that his next step was actually to move forward for rights for gays and lesbians in America. Next one is Barbara Gettings, is an influential American activist for the LGBTQ equality. She founded the Daughters of Bilitis. And in here, what I have for is the page here. Barbara Gettings was arrested for being a lesbian, and that's actually fiction. She's a very strong woman that did a lot of protests, nonviolent protests for rights. Some of you might have seen a famous picture where individuals were doing a march and she was there dressed very feminine with her banner that said, homosexuals deserve all rights. And so again, a very much honored individual, Barbara Gettings. I want to focus on Jose Sadia because again, the fact or fiction that I have and is Jose Sadia, aka the Widow Norton, was the first openly gay male candidate to run for public office in the United States. And of course, that is true. Most people think that Jose Sadia, that actually Harvey Milk was the first individual openly gay male to win. He won, but he was not the first individual. So I just want to read about Jose Sadia. So Julio Sadia, born December 13th, 1922, died August 19th, 2013, was known as the Grand Mayor Absolute Empress I de San Francisco, the Widow Norton. Mother Jose and is considered the Rosa Parks of the gay rights movement. He was a political activist who resided in San Francisco, California. He is most notably known as the first openly gay candidate to run for public office in the United States in 1961. Most people think that it was Harvey Milk who was the first openly gay male to run for public office, but it was Jose Sadia who paved the way for Harvey Milk to successfully win his election. Jose Sadia wanted to join the army during World War II, and because he was fluent in several languages, Jose Sadia was assigned to intelligence school. He was declined security clearance as the investigators discovered his homosexuality. However, he was approved and entered the Army Reserve, where he served openly as a gay male. That was unheard of during that time. After his service to our country and it was over, he went back to San Francisco with the hopes of becoming a teacher. He began frequently attending a gay bar known as the Black Cat, where he became a performer. He was performing as a drag queen at the Black Cat and he was dubbed the Nightingale of Montgomery Street. As a female impersonator, he was again denied pursuing his dream of becoming a teacher because he was homosexual. He also founded the International Court System, which is one of the oldest, largest LGBT organizations in the world. This is a grassroots network of organizations that foster community relationships by raising money for different charities such as AIDS, breast cancer, domestic abuse, and homelessness. A famous quote often stated by the extraordinary Mother Jose was, "United we stand, divided they catch us, one by one." I had the privilege and honor of knowing Jose Sadia. Actually, I myself am a female impersonator. My drag name is Fontana Divine. Um, and I'm actually was Empress 6 of all New Mexico. We are now on the line of 33, so I'm way, way back when. I met Jose when I attended Coronation in San Francisco, and we became good, good friends. I started visiting him in Palm Springs and noticed that he was living in a one-room, he had a one-room bedroom in a home that he was taking care of individuals, and all of his stuff that he owned, his precious items, were in 2 storage units, and he would go there every single day to just visit with his stuff. And we decided to bring him here to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and because we had a back casita, and that's where he lived until he passed away. He did get adrenal cancer, but I learned so much from him. Um, I'd like to spend more time talking about his legacy. But interesting thing that once 2 stories I want to say is that when he was in the army, he would get into a lot of trouble. One thing happened that he was refusing to answer to his commanding officer, would refuse to do anything that he said whatsoever. And until one of the upper in charge officers came and said, Jose, you're going to get in a lot of trouble. Why are you not responding to your commanding officer? And he said, when he calls me Jose instead of Joe, I will answer him. He's a very proud individual. Again, you can see the picture in the upper right-hand corner. That's with Harvey Milk. Jose Sadia is the one individual dressed from My Fair Lady. Interesting enough, that night they declared him queen of the ball. However, he said, I am not a queen, I am an empress. So I highly suggest look up Jose Sadia and find out about his life. There is a postage stamp that is in the works. Hopefully we'll see if that occurs now. That's going to be coming out. There is a movie, a documentary that did come out a couple of years ago, and they're looking at making another movie about his life. So let's move on. How do you introduce pride with our gifted youth? This is very difficult, again, especially in the times that we live. I am gracious enough to live in a very royal blue state here in New Mexico. So it's very easily, DEI still exists in my curriculum at my university, in most of the schools that are here. We have specific language in our Constitution here in the state of New Mexico. So I live in a kind of a different world now here than other states that are being persecuted or being denied access or being able to just even mention the word LGBTQ, and books being banned and taken away. And I never thought that would happen in this world again, but it has. So first of all, it's important to provide this history to our children and adolescents who are straight gifted, and those who are gifted LGBTQ plus. So in order to help them understand and support these individuals' rights and issues of inequality. Starting at an early age, it's evident that young gifted children and adolescents exhibit acute moral sensitivity. Young gifted children and adolescents are more inclined to hijack the responsibility and burdens of others. There's an innate need to agonize and covet others' internal strengths that transpires in order to overcome their achievements by being able to ease others' pain and suffering, be more empathetic, and demonstrate an advanced ability to think in the abstract pertaining to concepts of fairness and justice. So early stages of moral sensitivity originate in the development of empathy between the gifted child and the parent guardian, which becomes the foundation and formation of his or her identity and self-development. Therefore, parents and guardians should assist and encourage their gifted children and adolescents to give back and assist them to recognize that being gifted includes the ability to perceive injustice when it exists, to identify creative alternatives, and to use their intellectual skills toward finding solutions. This will ultimately lead to gifted children and adolescents to feel enriched when they use their talents to shape the better worlds for others. Gifted youth are also keenly aware of their flaws and imperfections of their parents, teachers, and political leaders. They try to grasp the enormity of injustice, war, politics, natural disasters, and essential mysteries, and may respond with sadness, anxiety, anger, or even indifference when the burden seems too overwhelming. Notably, they are gifted, but they are still children. Parents, guardians, and educators need to understand that the statistical data and best practices that can be shared with gifted children pertaining to LGBTQ plus children and adolescents, what they face in schools, despite the fact that their children might not be LGBTQ plus. Discussion surrounding the following presented statistics might be a reason for our gifted children and adolescents youth who feel the need to support this oppressed group. These discussions can take place between the child and the adolescent and the parents with the intentions to talk about any possible steps that could take place to deter negative outcomes. So let's look at some statistics. The Human Rights Campaign survey, HRC, reports growing up LGBT in America, conducted in 2017, was a groundbreaking survey of more than 10,000 LGBT identified youth ages 13 through 17. It provides a stark picture of the difficulties they face. According to HRC's survey, LGBT students reported being harassed at school both verbally and physically. This occurrence is twice the rate of non-LGBT adolescents. This survey revealed stressors that are highlighted at the middle school or high school setting, such as being bullied and harassed, not having role models, and experiencing negative educational outcomes. For LGBTQ plus students, faculty and staff, and school environments can pose numerous threats and obstacles. Hateful language, physical and emotional harassments, and threats of physical violence are a reality. Even in more supportive environments, the surrounding silence on all things LGBTQ plus is a painful message in itself. The next slides are some recent statistics on LGBT youth and the school environment. I'm not going to read all these, just a few of these, but you can have these. Look at these. I can also send you this report so you have it if you email me. But if you look at this, LGBTQ plus students are less likely to report the school staff intervene in homophobic and sexist remarks. 65% of LGBT, lesbian, gay, bisexual, no data on transgender individuals, experience homophobic bullying. 97% of LGBT students hear derogatory phrases such as dyke or poof used in school. Half of the teachers fail to respond to homophobic language when they hear it. Even that statement, that's so gay. When that's being brought up in school, many don't even confront that statement. 98% of LGBT pupils hear that, again, that's so gay at school. 75% of young LGBT people in faith schools experience homophobic bullying and are less likely than pupils in other schools to report it. 90% of 15 to 24-year-olds have been called names because of their sexuality. So the majority of respondents who were out or perceived as transgender while in schools K through 12 experienced some form of mistreatment, including being verbally harassed and physically attacked or sexually assaulted. Excuse me. 17% of experienced such severe mistreatment that they left school in a result. 40% of transgender people attempted suicide compared to 4.6% of the general population. So how do you introduce pride with our gifted youth? Educate yourself and child about LGBTQ plus topics, issues, questions, and concerns. Locate materials and resources about the LGBTQ plus culture and history. American history as it pertains to LGBTQ plus community is denoted by many inequities and discriminating obstacles. However, there are numerous milestones and more courage and victories that are not usually shared with mainstream society and history. There are few history textbooks in our school system that include this history. School libraries rarely have LGBTQ plus book titles. I think it's getting worse for students to read and to check out. This might upset children trying to locate information at their school library, which sometimes ends up with librarians questioning why. These are some suggested readings for your students. Pride Celebrating Diversity and Community by Robin Stevenson, and This Day in June by Gail E. Pittman, and A Gay and Lesbian History for Kids by Jerome Holm. And there's a question, have these, there been updated studies with the recent changes in the nation? There's not been any funding, and a lot of organizations are scared right now to do current research. People are actually looking into that and finding more research. So again, it's sort of being put on hold. GLSEN, the Gay Lesbian Educational Straight Teachers Network, is looking at that specific issue. It's just current times that we live in. It's and funding being taken away. So also best practices, again, acknowledge that your gifted child or adolescent will challenge authority and question rules. Remind them that there are many famous individuals who are rule breakers and change agents, such as Gandhi, Harvey Milk, and Martin Luther King. We tend to forget that Martin Luther King was a rule breaker. Just as gifted individuals hate regurgitating facts, repetition, and memorization, they're also nonconformists against meaningless, pointless rules that do not provide rationality against such laws, rules, and regulations. Parents need to assist their children and provide needed support if in reality they might have to be tolerant of such situations, that they feel unjust by assisting them in undergoing some kind of sense of accomplishment. Even small efforts such as encouraging letter writing to challenge unfair law or practice can make a difference. As a parent and educator, you can also provide encouragement to the use of their giftedness to make a better world for others. This can be done by using their intelligence, critical thinking, and creativity to locate alternatives and knowledgeable skills toward solution finding. You can also join the LGBTQ plus movement by becoming an ally, by demonstrating pride, love, and acceptance for continuing the fight for equality. By becoming an ally, you honor the efforts of those activists before us that can bring awareness to your family, friends, and perhaps the larger community. Your child adolescents might also become a future activist. Celebrate this historic evidence of the past by celebrating LGBTQ plus Pride Month, by having an open heart and mind. Attend a local Pride parade or find out what other LGBTQ plus events are occurring in your city during Pride Month and throughout the year. Two positive resources for the ins and outs of what to expect at Pride celebrations can be found in the Pride Celebrating Diversity and Community by Robin Stevenson, and again this day in June by Gail E. Pittman. Nothing is quite as magical as that feeling of relief and support when LGBTQ plus individuals have found family, and an annual Pride Parade is the perfect place to be among like-minded, supportive folks who know what you're going through. This is similar to how gifted children feel when they are in school with their like-minded intellectual peers. Thus, it just feels good to be surrounded by LGBTQ plus folk, straight allies, and other people who care about the same issues. Interesting enough, we don't have straight pride parades because gay pride isn't the kind of pride that means being proud of your accomplishments. It means not having to live in shame anymore. I want to say that again. Interesting enough, we don't have straight pride parades because gay pride isn't the kind of pride that means being proud of your accomplishments. It means not having to live in shame anymore. But remember, what I need to remember is that before you purchase a gay pride cap or make arrangements to march in the next pride parade, or make sure you talk to your child who might or might not be ready for supporting this publicly. Your gifted child might be intensely informed about LGBT plus topics, but may not be comfortable by being put in the limelight. They also may be dealing with their own emerging sexual identity. So it's pertinent that parents, educators, and counselors should be expected to assist their gifted children, adolescents, to be socially and emotionally able to manage situations that are geared for adults. Parents should honor their questions, their concerns, and anxieties about injustices in our lives, which should be treated with understanding and respect. A few of my references.
Yeah, we've got a comment. Thank you for stating that about the parade. Now I can finally explain to some family members. They just don't get it, which is great. It's one of the reasons why we like to have this information and webinars and blogs and just through our network in general. It's education. And the more people are educated about the history and what's going on right now, the more we can do to enact change.
Thank you very much. And I know that was a lot, but I wanted to cover. A lot of people don't realize, again, that they hear about the Stonewall riots and think about that it was just one day, and it was more than one day. But again, that's what led to why we celebrate prides around the world and why it's so important to do that. Again, when I go to pride events, it is an opportunity for anyone to be who they want to be. Whether it's dyeing their hair in rainbow colors and wearing a dress. And I'm not just talking about individuals who might be gay, but I'm talking about straight men. You know, at the last Pride event, there was this man and he had glitter in his beard and was in a had a dressed in a kilt, and he says, "I will give you a dad hug." And he was there, you assume looking at him, you'd think that he was gay, but he was there to support his trans son.
Oh,
And just it's an opportunity for people just to finally be who they are. Because again, we have to go back. I'm a little bit dressed a little bit more than, but this is how I dress, but more colorful. But most of it is that we have to go back in the closet for whatever profession we are doing. And people don't realize that when you're gay, you come out of the closet 24/7, sometimes by the second. I did that now.
hmm.
And you have to be very cautious when you're coming out because think about that isolation, that pressure that you have. But thinking about if I tell this person, will I lose my job? Will I lose my friend? Will I get beat up? Is this appropriate for me to say that? That's very scary for any individual to deal with their entire life, being kind of on pins and needles. So you don't come out of the closet just once. You're going back in and out on whatever that situation is.
PJ, thank you so much. Someone wrote, "This has been very informative and inspirational. Thanks for reminding us that we're not alone." That's important, that we need to remind our young people that as well. You're not alone. You're not in this alone. Pride events are also opportunities to speak out for those who can't speak for themselves at this time for whatever reason. And the more I learn, the more proud I am to be a mom of two amazing, gifted LGBTQ plus human beings. Thank you for this. And I have a summer reading list now. So that's
Okay.
awesome. And yeah, thanks for the book suggestion, PJ. Your book is really, really great. If you're not familiar with it, it's really digestible. It's really just like, one pager kind of thing. You can do it real quick, and it works great with younger kids too, right?
Yes, very much so. And I just want to say, I think it's the last thing I would like to say is that, again, I put on prides and I still do this for Pride. I put on Los Ranchos Pride and help other prides throughout New Mexico. And I do it because I'm there to support the event, but I might reach out to that one kid
Mm,
who finally sees people like them who I kept alive that day from not taking their own life. And
wow.
we take that for granted on the things that we do, the things that you need to do. You need to stand up, say something, speak out, because you never know the difference you're going to make in someone's life.
Yep. And
So I want
even
to
the
thank
smallest things. Yep. Yeah. Thanks. Thank you so much, PJ. Dr. Cedillo. We appreciate your time and your expertise. And this was very, very informative, very fascinating. I feel like everyone should know this information.
Wonderful. So thanks very much. And uh, everyone have a fantastic time at NAGC's conference.
Yes. Have a good one, everyone. Happy Pride. Thanks for being here today. And if you're watching by
Happy
recording,
Pride.
thanks for tuning
Something
in.
on the 29th of June.
Yes. All right. Bye, everyone.